Hey everyone, it's Monica, and it is time for Be Free Friday. And before I get started talking today on what it means to wait well, I wanted to cover a couple pieces of housekeeping for you. The first is that right now we have going on a giveaway. We are giving away 2 copies of Shauna Niequist's latest book, Present Over Perfect. And if you want to take a look back, we've linked in the post for that giveaway our most recent podcast interview with her. This book is amazing. It's about frantic living and more soulful living and how to leave behind frantic pace. And if you know us, that is everything that we're all about here at Be Still Be Free. So we're giving away 2 copies of the book. So just go to bestillbefree.com and find the post there on the homepage and click it and just make sure you enter the giveaway because it ends on Saturday. And the second thing is that this is our second to last Be Free Friday for the summer. As a lot of you know, we take the summer off of podcasting, but we have just really felt like the Lord was leading us to take the summer off of Be Free Fridays too. So that may be a disappointment. You may not care. But anyway, just wanted to let you know Sarah will be here to close this out next week, and you're going to make sure that you get that. So I wanted to talk to you today about what it means to wait well. And I kind of had this little tagline to go with it: thriving in the slow motion process of becoming. Because if you guys are like me in any way, shape, or form, whenever God is doing some change in my life, whenever He is growing me or changing circumstances or doing something to bring us from one level to the next, it feels like it is just going in slow motion. It feels like I'm kind of trudging through mud sometimes, and I'm ready to just get from point A to point B, and God just doesn't seem to work that way. And so I personally am just waiting for God to bring fulfillment to some things in my life. I know nobody else can relate to that because surely God just does everything that you are wanting right when you want Him to do it. Am I right? But I've just really been impressed to share with my friends and my husband and my family just what it means to wait well. And there's so many different examples in the Bible of people who waited well. Like we can look at the story of Ruth and how everything was taken from her, but she just did the next right thing every time that it came along, and she was devoted and she was committed and she was willing to just be there for Naomi and to follow her along, and God just really honored the integrity of her heart and brought about a big blessing because she was waiting well. And the story of Joseph, who God had given a specific word, and Joseph thought it meant one thing and God said that it meant something else, but Joseph waited well, and he never knew if the fulfillment was going to actually happen or not. But every time he was faced with a trial or a difficulty or an opportunity to morally do something that he shouldn't do, he decided to honor God every time, even when it seemed like God was failing him, and even when it seemed like God had forsaken him. He had high integrity, and he chose to wait well. And David is probably my favorite example because we all know how I feel about David, and I'm really looking forward to spending eternity getting to know him. But King David was like one of the best examples of waiting well. In fact, God called him a man after His own heart, and that He looks at the inside of a man and not the external appearance. And as I was kind of preparing for this Be Free Friday, I had this epiphany that it wasn't just that David was a man who was after God's own heart, meaning I always interpreted that to mean that he was a man that was like God's heart and that he had characters that were like God. But I suddenly had this epiphany that David was a man who was after God's heart, like he was chasing after God's heart. He wanted more of God's heart. He wanted more of God's character, and he was an active participant in chasing it down. And we know from what we read in the Bible, like David just endured for decades a whole lot of difficulty and a whole lot of pain, waiting for the fulfillment of that promise. But when we look through the Psalms, he has the most beautiful writings that pour out his heart and express his frustration, yet turn around and say, I trust you, Lord, and I know your heart and I know your character because I've been still to know it and I've chased after it. And so therefore I trust you, whatever you decide to do in this. And that is waiting well. It's having the right heart attitude in the midst of the waiting. It's choosing to do the next right thing, even if nobody sees it, even if nobody acknowledges it, even if nobody understands it. It's doing the next right thing so that your heart can be in the right place with the Lord. I wanted to share a couple verses with you about this. The first one is Psalm 37:4, which ironically David wrote. Okay, so we know the history of what the things that David had done, but he wrote, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart." And so he wanted to delight himself in the Lord, which means be soft and be pliable and find happiness in the Lord and chase after God. And in the waiting, what I have discovered in all the things that I thought that I wanted right away and all the things I thought God would do immediately in my life, when I had to wait and I was chasing after God and delighting myself in God in that process, it's so funny how so many times I don't necessarily want the thing that I thought I wanted anymore, or it doesn't seem as entertaining, or it doesn't seem as exciting, and it kind of loses some of the pizzazz and some of the flavor. And I think there's so much intention in that, because as we get to know God more, our heart becomes a reflection of his. When we delight ourselves in him, it becomes a reflection of his heart. And maybe that thing that we thought was so awesome isn't really awesome or meant to be, but God needed us to wait so that we could see that for ourselves. And the other verse in Psalm 37, just a few verses after delight yourself in the Lord, is be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. And man, like David wrote that. And if anyone could have expressed impatience with waiting in the process and waiting for this super slow motion thing to come to pass, it was David. He was told specifically, you will be king of Israel, not just you will be a mighty man of valor. Like, it was nothing vague. It was a very specific word. And look how long he had to wait. But he said, be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. And that is waiting well. Waiting well means waiting without doubt. It means waiting with faith. It means waiting with trust. It means to esteem yourself enough to do the next right thing, and to esteem others enough to do the next right thing by them, never knowing where it's going to end up or what it's going to do. And when we do that, that's when God can say that we are women who are chasing after God's own heart, and that we are after his heart too. We're not just chasing after him, but our hearts become like his. So whatever situation or circumstance you're facing, whatever difficulty it is that you are waiting for God to bring to fulfillment, ask him today what it means for you to do it well. Ask him how you can wait well in the process and what that looks like in your everyday life, and then just go do that thing. And when he brings it about the way that he wants to, it is going to be amazing. It is going to be the biggest blessing, and it is going to feel so good to know that you did it right and you did it well. Happy Friday. We love you guys.